This is the hook that killed 84 people.
PG&E is a murderous enterprise. They murdered my father.
What PG&E has systematically done is failed to learn from its failures.
Nothing's happening when it comes to the catastrophe that happened in Paradise and we know is coming here.
Do you think we're going to get through the next decade without another PG&E disaster that kills people?
No.
In a year defined by a global pandemic, the extra time staying home served as something of a silver lining, at least for some of us.
I am not a doom and gloom person.
If nothing else, we count on home to be safe.
I'm always looking on the bright side, but there's no bright side on this.
For Californians like Judy Morris, home is becoming a problem.
You're living in sort of a constant state of alert.
Yes, that's the only way to describe it.
First, the summer brought a record heat wave. At the very moment when everyone needed power the most to run air conditioning and fans, California's biggest power company didn't have enough electricity. Our first rolling blackouts in 2 decades.
Every day I think about it. I just think, how on earth is this safe?
But Judy's more worried about what came next. Lost homes, lost lives, and in one fire, an investigation of whether her power company is to blame.
We feel like at home we're not safe, especially during the fire months. And the fire months are becoming year-round.
Fires are burning through places and in fuel types in ways that we have never seen before.
This summer's wildfires stunned firefighters. These fires grew giant, even without big windstorms to push them.
The August complex has scorched more than 1 million acres, making it a gigafire.
By early fall, more than 4 million acres of California burned, doubling the record for an entire year.
We broke all these records for acreage, and we're not even in the windiest time of year yet.
Yeah, that's a really concerning fact.
Dry, late fall windstorms gave California our deadliest and most destructive wildfire ever. It's been impossible to get an engine to every structure that needs saving around here. The campfire destroyed Paradise in a single day.
We can squeeze through that. We can squeeze through this one. It's okay.
And then burned until late November. More than 14,000 families lost their homes. 85 people died.
I was there, and that wasn't nighttime. It was pitch black during the middle of the day beneath the shroud of smoke and falling embers. The campfire sparked further up these very power lines on a gusty day, a lot like this one. Ever since I was in that fire, I've worked to understand it. Firepower Money investigated the weather, the evacuation, and the political system that keeps PG&E in power. But this year, we learned the most chilling new fact about the campfire. It wasn't an accident. It was a crime. The people who died in Paradise weren't just disaster victims. They were victims of their power company, the one that owns these lines, PG&E.
This is the hook that killed 84 people.
That groove took about 98 years to wear in. It's not a defect. These hooks are what are holding the electrical lines off the ground. And PG&E's decision was simply just to let these things hang until they broke.
In the windy, early morning hours of November 8th, the last remaining bit of metal on this hook did break, allowing the power line to hit the metal tower, showering the ground below it in the sparks that lit the campfire.
They didn't want to spend the money to actually inspect these things. They didn't want to spend the money to actually replace these things. They're ignoring the safety of people to maximize their profits.
It was motivated for money. They killed my father for money.
Philip Binstock's father, Julian, lived in a retirement home near Paradise.
My father was found in a bathtub.
When you contemplate dying, burning to death is your last choice. And the families have that image in their minds of their loved ones' last moments on this earth.
On behalf of PG&E, I plead to violation of Penal Code Section 192B, involuntary manslaughter as a felony. Your Honor.
The Pacific Gas and Electric Company pleaded guilty to 84 felony manslaughter charges and 1 felony for illegally starting the campfire, the biggest corporate homicide conviction in U.S. history. No people at PG&E faced any charges. The campfire convictions belonged to the PG&E Corporation, not to any of its officers or employees.
So does it feel like they all got away?
Yeah, they got away with murder. Literally, in the truest sense of the word. A corporation is a fictional person. It's a legal fiction.
Is justice a fiction in this case?
Yeah, it is a fiction because it didn't go anywhere near enough. You know, not one of them is spending a day in jail. Not one. One day.
It's sickening. And every time we have to pay our PG&E bill, I feel like we are supporting a criminal.
Because you are.
Yes.
This story is about whether Judy can ever expect home to feel safe when her home is in PG&E's monopoly.
We're forced to make a decision. Do we stay here and deal with this year after year in a place that's been our home for 31 years, or do we finally get out?
How do PG&E's crimes compare, better or worse, than the guy throwing the cigarette butt out the window into a dry field?
Well, certainly much worse.
Ken Pimlotz thought a lot about how we should view PG&E's behavior. He was in charge of all 5,000 firefighters who rushed into Paradise to save people.
For a company to not engage and to willfully not invest in that and allow that to degrade over decades, I mean, that truly is a crime.
This affects all of us, even if you don't live in fire country. The days on end of so-called public safety shutoffs, blacking out our homes and businesses, we can't stop those unless we stop PG&E's fires. And that's why we all need to hear what the chief who led that firefight has to say. Do you think we're gonna get through the next decade without another PG&E disaster that kills people?
No.
On the next Firepower Money,
my entire life was wiped out. My wife and daughter didn't make it out.
Homicide is a potential given that 4 individuals have died.
Words are cheap and easy. Actions are what matter here.
PG&E is marking, studying, promising, and then walking off.
I want to briefly shift topics to PG&E. With PG&E,
it's always the last question.